One thing that I cannot stand is talking about Donald Trump. But he is in the news every day. He was the president and he will be the president. Again, he's the most important man in the country. But since I don't align with him politically, if I even mention him, I get told that I have TDS, Trump Derangement Syndrome. I get told that by the people who say that he was sent by God, by the people who wear his merch from head to toe, who buy multiple flags and fly them proudly, the people who buy all this merch that was made in China to show how much they love America, the people who turn Trump into Rambo or the Terminator or a wartime general or anything to show how manly he is when we can all see him. The the people who have cardboard cutouts of Trump and dance with it at family get-togethers, the people who also say that Joe Biden is a dementia-ridden Alzheimer's patient at the same exact time they say he's a money laundering criminal mastermind. I remember watching the 30 for 30 about the USFL that came out years before Trump entered politics. And after watching it, I became fascinated. So I started learning more and doing my own research, like they tell me I should do. How Donald really just swooped in with a grudge against the NFL and immediately went to war against them. How he pitted owners against each other and alienated owners who didn't agree with him. Only he had the answers. Only he could save the league. And in the end, the league shut down. But since they technically won that lawsuit, he saw it as a win. Who cares how many people lost their jobs, lost their livelihoods? He came out okay, so fuck them. And now I've watched him basically do the same exact thing, but to the entire country. So I've come to the conclusion that my issues don't necessarily lie with Donald Trump. He is who he is. My issues are with the people who support him unconditionally. My issues lie with the MAGA folk, the ones with the true Trump derangement syndrome. It's the people who claim to be Christian but are against feeding hungry kids. They say that they are not against it. They're fine with churches doing it. They just don't want the government to be a part of it. But at the same time, they also want the church to run the government. So it's like a constant tilt-a-whirl of what the fuck. We're talking about the people who claim to be pro-life, but only when that life hasn't entered the world yet. After that, fuck them. They're more concerned about a life that doesn't exist yet over a life that already exists. We're talking about the people who support a man who has a long recorded history of fleecing contractors and not paying people he owes money to, claiming bankruptcy or bleeding them dry in the court system. That's another thing I learned about him way before he entered politics. It's common knowledge, and yet people say he cares about the common man. He cares about the regular average citizen. The man who mocked a disabled reporter and people cheered. The man who continued to profit from his businesses in part by leveraging his position as president to the point of overcharging the Secret Service to stay at his hotel. And his supporters said, that's smart. I'm talking about the people who bitch about capitalism, yet call it socialism or communism. But when they're griping about capitalism, they want the government to step in and do something. They want the government to step in and dictate the free market, which is communism. I'm talking about the people who complain about the economy, who scream about how they can't afford anything. They can't afford to live. And then they send money to a man so he can save America. They send money to a man they also claim doesn't need the money. What does it say about someone who can't afford to live, but can't afford to send money to someone that they gleefully say doesn't need their money? They can't afford to live, they can't afford gas, they can't afford eggs or any groceries. That's why we need Trump, they say. And they elected him because he promised he could fix all these things, some on day one, some before he even took office. So he's elected. Hallelujah. We can finally afford to live again. And then he immediately starts backtracking. Immediately gets an interview where he says, well, it's going to be hard to get the price of groceries down. And then the people I'm talking about immediately move the goalposts. They spend months, years saying Trump has to be elected for the prices to come down. And as soon as he says he won't be able to do that, they say, well, what did you expect? They immediately go, well, yeah, we didn't expect him to do that. We just want wages to go up, is what they say. But for the last 4 years, wages have gone up. And when that was pointed out, they either pivot to, well, it doesn't matter if wages go up when prices go up. Or they'll say, well, if wages go up, that means prices will go up. These people are never happy unless they're miserable. Yet they're always miserable and never happy. They're sore-ass losers, and they're even more sore-ass winners. I'm talking about the people who cried about losing their jobs because they wouldn't get the COVID vaccine, but they blame the government. They blame the government for a private company making a decision. Once again, they blame capitalism. Oh, what about the military and the government employees who refuse? That's capitalism. The government is their job. The government is their boss. But the government can't be blamed for Ford or Apple or Carhartt or Fox News or hospitals mandating what is required of their employees. It's okay to be mad if people lost their jobs because they refused to get the COVID vaccine, but make sure you focus your anger in the right direction. Capitalism. And at the end of the day, they still had a choice. Unlike a uterus in a red state. I talk about the people who say, oh, it's my body, my choice, until it's an experimental DNA changing turbo cancer inducing jab. First off, bless your heart. Second, I just wish one of these Rhodes Scholars could point me to one instance of a pregnant lady walking within 6 feet of a woman who had an abortion, and then later she loses her baby. That's because abortions aren't contagious. Our answer's so simple, yet the simple-minded can't even grasp it. But we are talking about the people who say, why are we sending our tax dollars here or there instead of helping American citizens? Yet they don't support helping American citizens. Hungry kids, that's the parents' problem. Homeless, they're just mentally ill drug addicts. Mental health, socialism. Medical debt, student loan debt, pull yourself up by the bootstraps. Universal health care, that's the worst kind of socialism. But what do you expect from the people who can't afford to live yet pay Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, a monthly payment so they can go on a social media app and have free speech? None of their words word. That's the only thing you can count on. We have citizens who have to choose between insulin and groceries, while CEOs choose between a jet or a yacht. But the thing that is the most pressing issue to the people I'm talking about is making sure that those 2 trans girls in their state can't play volleyball. Because the war on women isn't the war on women isn't because of the red states that have decided that a uterus is the property of the state instead of the citizen. No, the war on women to them is the existence of trans women, which is less than half of 1% of the population. And their whole reason is because a man might put on a dress so he can assault a woman. So they freely admit the actual problem is predatory cisgendered men, yet they want to punish a tiny, tiny percentage, a tiny, tiny minority of the population because of the crimes of a much larger part of the population. It's a war on women, screamed the people who had wet dreams of a civil war leading up to the election. But then they won. And the left didn't act like the right when they lost the election. So the right was just left with a semi and blue balls and nowhere to ejaculate all that pent-up rage, so they become sore-ass winners. The most miserable people who walk this land, and they constantly tell me that I hate myself. I hate myself, and I'm waging a war on women because the left are the party of war. The left are the warmongers. The right just wants world peace and don't want to fund wars or send their children to die in pointless wars. Then Trump starts talking about making Canada a state, taking back the Panama Canal, or acquiring Greenland for some damn reason. And then all of a sudden, those same supposedly peace-loving MAGA folk are right on board. Yeah. Let's get them all. Whatever it takes. We should be able to take Canada in less than a week. We deserve the Panama Canal. We need Greenland. The only way you'll get any of that is by force, which means war, which will be pointless. That we don't want to send our children to die in a pointless war, are ready to engage in a pointless war because Trump said jump and they said how high. They support Russia taking Ukraine just because they want it back. They support Israel wiping the Palestinians off the map. They support Trump taking Canada and Greenland and the Panama Canal. They're not anti-war. They don't support peace. They support authoritarianism. But if I point out their blatant hypocrisy, I get told to shut the fuck up because America had rejected the left when Trump won in a landslide. Landslide? He got 49% of the vote. That's 49%. That's not even 50. Last I checked, that is not a majority. He did win the popular vote by 1%, and it's not even a majority. He won the swing states with less than 200,000 votes combined. But thanks to our affirmative action electoral college, it does look like a landslide. Look, Trump is Trump. He is who he is. The issue is the people who actually think that he cares about them. The people who hear his nonsensical ramblings and declare him a genius. The people who have given into their hatred of others, that they are willing to burn this country to the ground so they can stand on the ashes and say, we saved it. And they think that the only person who can deliver them to the promised land is Donald Trump. They are the ones with Trump derangement syndrome.